Next, it was time to stir up some waves. So, Claire Crawford packed up a bit and returned to the Marquis's mansion. She believed Eric Stuart would know what to do. It wasn't until Eric Stuart returned to the Qin mansion that he was informed of everything that had happened that day. Poor Daisy was kneeling in the main courtyard, with someone supervising her, while Lady White was furious, seemingly sulking with Claire Crawford. "Duke!" Daisy saw Eric Stuart and immediately began to cry, thinking he would pity her. However, Daisy was mistaken. Eric Stuart simply stepped past Daisy and went into Lady White's room. "Aunt!" As soon as Eric Stuart addressed her, Lady White sighed deeply. It was clear she was angry and said, "You're grown now, and this old woman can't control you anymore. From now on, the Qin mansion is yours to manage. Tomorrow, I'll pack up and go to the mountains to pray for you, never to come down again." Eric Stuart's head throbbed. If household matters weren't handled well, peace would be elusive. "Aunt, you're my blood relative, the one who loves me most. How can you not understand certain things?" Eric Stuart's words displeased Lady White. What did he mean by she didn't understand? Of course, she understood. Claire Crawford was just a concubine's daughter and unworthy of the Duchess position. Naturally, she favored Daisy, a child she had watched grow up. What did I do wrong? With her temperament, how can she take care of you well? Daisy is someone I watched grow up, the most sensible one. Only with Daisy caring for you can I be at ease. Eric Stuart had no choice but to play his trump card. Claire Crawford had returned to the Marquis's mansion, and even if she were brought back, his aunt would likely continue causing trouble. In that case, he might as well change his approach, possibly altering her perspective. "Aunt, do you know why I married her? Why I made her the Duchess?" Lady White had never considered these questions. Seeing Eric Stuart's serious demeanor, she was somewhat reluctant and huffed, "It's naturally because she's a vixen, and you're bewitched by her beauty. Marry for virtue, you must understand that. I see nothing virtuous in her, unlike Daisy, who is at least devoted to you." Chapter 78, Time to bring home the wife Daisy. Eric Stuart now finds it exhausting just to hear her name, let alone meet her. What kind of spell has his aunt fallen under? "Aunt, let me tell you this, do you know why the Emperor granted her such a title?" Eric Stuart began to use his charm to persuade his aunt. As expected, the old lady fell for it and replied, "Isn't she the Princess Serena? Could she be more prestigious than you?" "Aunt, she is the Princess Serena personally titled by the Emperor, and she earned it by leading troops to victory in the Northwest. I need a noblewoman who is virtuous and gentle, but her status is different. She can draw the Emperor's bow, she can fight on the battlefield, and she has the support of the Marquis household. Marquis Crawford commands the royal armored troops. Aunt, she alone is worth many, don't you think the position of Queen Consort is meant for her?" With this explanation, Lady White started to see the potential of Claire Crawford as the Queen Consort. She hadn't thought about it that way before, only considering that a woman should be virtuous and gentle, and ideally, bear a son for Eric Stuart. But now, realizing Claire Crawford's noble status and capability, she acknowledged that Claire was more suitable than Daisy to support Eric Stuart. "Aunt, you see, she's already been provoked to return to the Marquis household. I truly don't like Daisy, who spends all day urging you to climb into my bed. What good could come of that?" Lady White was about to argue, but Eric Stuart continued, "Aunt, I know her intentions well. Without her whispering in your ear, you wouldn't have thought of putting her in my bed. With such thoughts, the Qin royal mansion cannot tolerate it. I will deal with Daisy and personally welcome the princess back to the Qin royal mansion." At this, Lady White had nothing more to say. Ultimately, Eric Stuart indeed made a valid point, and it was true. Previously, she hadn't noticed, but now she suddenly realized that Daisy truly intended to serve her for a lifetime. It was also Daisy who spoke about trivial matters concerning Claire Crawford, which only made her angrier, feeling that Claire Crawford was unworthy of being the Qin Duchess. "Alright then, you've grown up, you can make your own decisions about these things, as long as you understand them in your heart," Lady White said, and only then did Eric Stuart smile. One had to admire Claire Crawford's cleverness. When leaving, Lady White did not follow, and Daisy cried for a while, looking up to see only Eric Stuart. "Your Grace." Daisy was momentarily stunned. Why didn't Lady White come out as well? Before she could think further, Eric Stuart instructed, "Lift your head, let me take a good look at you. You've been serving by my aunt's side for so long, and I've never really looked at you." Hearing this, Daisy thought she had hope. Frankly, Eric Stuart had been somewhat indifferent before and didn't show much affection towards other women. But it didn't matter. As long as Eric Stuart agreed to make her a concubine this time, she would do everything to make him see her differently in the future. So, she shyly lifted her head. Eric Stuart observed her carefully for a while, then chuckled, saying, "Indeed, a face as pretty as a flower and a clever tongue, no wonder you could persuade my aunt." Daisy was taken aback by these words, feeling a bit scared. Eric Stuart was usually quite easygoing, at least he had a handsome smile, and in front of Lady White, he was well-mannered. Therefore, Daisy naturally believed that the rumors outside were not true. Stories of Eric Stuart's bad temper and drunkenly beating maids to death were false. But now, seeing Eric Stuart's grim expression, she was genuinely frightened. "Why don't you answer? Are you happy that my Duchess left?" Eric Stuart squinted and asked Daisy, who really didn't dare to respond. She just knelt on the ground, hurriedly apologizing, "Your Grace, I know I was wrong, I truly know I was wrong." Though she was Lady White's adopted daughter and others called her Miss, she never dared to call Eric Stuart brother. Therefore, she was very aware of her status and position, knowing that in the Quin Duke's residence, she was merely a servant. Now, it was even clearer to her. Why call yourself a servant? Didn't you want to be my concubine? Didn't you want to climb into my bed? How can someone as pure as you arouse my interest? Eric Stuart said, raising an eyebrow, clearly feeling disgusted. He had previously thought Daisy was well behaved, not expecting her to harbor such dirty intentions towards him. Today, he would use Daisy to show everyone in the Quin Duke's residence that his bed wasn't easy to climb into. "I dare not, Your Grace, I dare not anymore," Daisy said, kneeling on the ground, crying pitifully. "If you know you're wrong, then kneel in the main courtyard, let the entire Quin Duke's residence see what happens when you have improper thoughts and how you should be punished." After giving his orders, Daisy was immediately taken to the main courtyard to kneel in the middle. Eric Stuart left with 7 Moon, carrying large and small bags, filling the entire carriage. "Your Grace, is it necessary to do this?" 7 Moon was truly surprised. It seemed like half of the Quin Duke's residence was being emptied. Eric Stuart, unconcerned, said, "Why? I'm going to pick up my wife, shouldn't it be grand?" Well then, 7 Moon thought, this spectacle was indeed grand, those unaware might think he was marrying again. The carriage slowly arrived at the Marquis residence, where Claire Crawford was talking with Marquis Crawford, mostly discussing how much Eric Stuart missed Marquis Crawford and was preparing for the future. Incidentally, she casually mentioned to Marquis Crawford about Prince Lance trying to win over Jade Stone. Given the animosity between Marquis Crawford and Jade Stone, Prince Lance's actions clearly showed disregard for Marquis Crawford. Claire Crawford didn't need to exaggerate, the Marquis Crawford would naturally understand Prince Lance's unreliable nature. With Prince Lance being untrustworthy, the only option left was King Quin, Eric Stuart. "If you have time, visit your second sister. She's been causing a fuss lately. I've arranged a marriage for her with the Grand Tutor's family, but she doesn't seem to understand." Oh? Claire Crawford suddenly realized why Jade Stone had approached her the other day. Could it be because Vincent Crawford was about to get married, and Jade Stone was upset about it? But they were not on the same path. Vincent Crawford had high aspirations, and Jade Stone had no achievements, so she would never marry him. However, this didn't change the fact that Vincent Crawford genuinely liked Jade Stone, making the situation quite troublesome. "Alright, I'll visit my second sister and also help her understand Father's intentions. After all, Father's judgment is better than ours, and he's thinking of us," Claire Crawford said as Eric Stuart arrived with the Marquis guards, carrying gifts. The Marquis Crawford immediately understood what was happening but didn't reveal it. "Why bring so many gifts when visiting, Your Highness?" the Marquis Crawford laughed, acknowledging Eric Stuart's respect for Claire Crawford. However, Claire remained indifferent, thinking he might be trying to empty the Qin king's residence. "Talk with father for a while, I'll visit my second sister," Claire Crawford said. Eric Stuart nodded and replied, "Then I'll wait here for you." The Marquis Crawford observed and felt that the king was well-mannered by his daughter's influence. As long as Eric Stuart was obedient, the Qin king's residence would be under his control. Although Eric Stuart wasn't favored by the emperor, he was easier to manage than Prince Lance. As for gaining the emperor's favor, the Marquis had his ways. The hunting event at West Hill is coming up. His Majesty feels strong lately and will join. "I trust your archery skills are still sharp, Your Highness," the Marquis hinted. Eric Stuart understood the Marquis's intentions. It seemed the Marquis had chosen him. After waiting so long, the Marquis's acknowledgement was finally here, which wasn't easy. Chapter 79, Eric Stuart takes an arrow for the Emperor. That day, after Claire Crawford was personally escorted back by Eric Stuart, her status had indeed changed. Daisy was kneeling in the main courtyard, and Claire Crawford had to pass her to reach my garden. It was clear what had happened. It seemed Eric Stuart had personally intervened, and Daisy couldn't resist. "The young lady is delicate and frail, what are you doing here? Why not seize the opportunity? Take her to bed and comfort her properly?" Claire Crawford deliberately said this, but Eric Stuart didn't pay attention and went with her to my garden. Willow Green attended to them, and without any disturbances, my garden was truly comfortable. Claire Crawford and Eric Stuart enjoyed a hot pot meal, with the aroma wafting for miles, until Seven Moon came to report that Daisy had fainted. Claire Crawford then ordered someone to take Daisy to the servants' quarters. She didn't mention expelling Daisy from the Crawford estate, as she wasn't worth such drastic action. A few days later, the day of the hunting event at West Mountain, as mentioned by Duke Crawford, arrived. As expected, the Emperor, feeling healthy, wanted to personally participate. "Prince Lance, today I want to compete with you," the Emperor said, always fond of Prince Lance. After all, Royal Consort Florence was attending as well, and the Emperor treated Prince Lance well. Prince Lance was overjoyed, casting a smug glance at Eric Stuart, who was being ignored. "Your Majesty, the forest is full of fierce beasts, it would be wise to have someone protect you. I suggest His Highness, Prince Eric, who is very capable. For fairness, perhaps His Highness should not participate in the hunt. What do you think, Your Majesty?" Every word spoken by Duke Crawford was carefully considered. Eric Stuart, lacking the Emperor's favor at the moment, needed to earn it gradually. Duke Crawford had paved the way for him, and Eric Stuart was determined not to disappoint. "Father, I am willing to protect you and will not participate in this hunt." Previously, whether Eric Stuart participated in the hunt or not, it made no difference. Therefore, protecting the Emperor this time would be beneficial. The Emperor looked at Eric Stuart, realizing he had never really noticed the son, almost as if he had intentionally forgotten him. Now, he could finally see him clearly. Claire Crawford stood beside Eric Stuart, and the Emperor felt it was time to reconsider, at least not to view him with previous prejudice. "Then this time, I will trouble you." The Emperor still favored Prince Lance. Claire Crawford did not enter the field but sat on the side drinking tea, while Royal Consort Florence quietly approached. "Miss Crawford truly has skills, I underestimated you," Royal Consort Florence said with a seemingly cheerful smile, though inside she was seething with rage. Just a mere seductress had enchanted her son to the point of madness. "Your Highness is mistaken, Miss Crawford is now married and is the Duchess of Qin," Claire Crawford replied fearlessly, knowing her father supported her, and Royal Consort Florence dared not confront her directly. Florence was indeed furious, her face dark with anger, but she had to suppress it. Unexpectedly, just as the two parted ways unhappily, a major incident occurred. The Emperor was attacked, and it was Eric Stuart who was wounded. He had taken an arrow to the chest, bleeding heavily, and was carried back by those near the Emperor. Claire Crawford immediately rushed out. "Father, what happened?" she asked, ready to charge forward, sword in hand, as she had once been on the battlefield. However, she noticed something unusual. The Emperor was particularly concerned about Eric Stuart. Previously, he would never have shown such concern, but this time he quickly ordered, "Summon the royal physician immediately, the Duke of Qin cannot be harmed." Meanwhile, Eric Stuart seemed to grasp Claire Crawford's hand in worry, and they briefly held hands, conveying his message to her. "Father, the Duke's body hasn't fully recovered from the toxins, this arrow must be poisoned. Only the Qin household's physician understands his condition. The royal physician might not be able to assess it in time," Claire explained clearly, implying that Eric Stuart should be taken back to the Qin estate. The Emperor, slightly flustered, was about to agree when Lord Crawford intervened. "Your Majesty, my daughter makes sense. Perhaps I should dispatch the armored guards to escort the Duke back to the Qin estate." Just as the Emperor was about to consent, royal consort Florence slowly approached. Seeing Eric Stuart injured, she remarked, "Your Majesty, it's just an injury. How severe could it be? Is there a need for such a fuss?" Her words finally gave the Emperor an outlet for his suppressed anger. He angrily pushed royal consort Florence aside and said, "What do you know as a woman? King Qin was injured in the heart while saving me and now might be poisoned. How can you say such things?" Royal consort Florence was shocked to learn that Eric Stuart was injured because of the Emperor. How could she have known this? "Forgive me, Your Majesty, I was unaware of this," she quickly apologized, but the Emperor was too preoccupied to pay her any mind. "Duke Crawford, immediately dispatch the armored troops to escort King Qin back," the Emperor ordered. Duke Crawford personally escorted Eric Stuart back to the Qin residence. Along the way, Eric Stuart coughed up blood, a significant amount, staining the Emperor as he was taken back to the camp and again upon leaving. The Emperor's worried gaze was genuine, coming from deep within. Eric Stuart appeared weak, and though sitting in the carriage, his discomfort was more internal than from his injuries. Those at the pinnacle of power see neither family nor kin, only their own life and death. Claire Crawford, understanding Eric Stuart's thoughts, offered these words of comfort in the carriage. Eric Stuart found it somewhat amusing. He had never received paternal affection from the Emperor throughout his life. Yet, after his scheming, he finally gained the fatherly love he desired. Even if it was just a little today, this belated paternal affection felt pitiful to him. Back at the Qin residence, Lady White was terrified. No matter how strong the old lady was, she was still just an elderly woman, trembling at the door. Rumors spread throughout the Qin residence that Prince Qin had been poisoned while saving the Emperor and was now in critical condition. The Emperor sent many rare medicinal herbs, but they were useless for Eric Stuart. The Qin residents repeatedly reported Eric Stuart's critical condition, causing the Emperor to stay awake all night in the palace, even wishing to visit the Qin residence, but was stopped by the Empress Dowager. Even the Empress rarely left the Weiyang Palace, staying by the Emperor's side, while royal consort Florence seemed redundant. Seeing Lady White so worried, Claire Crawford approached, took her hand, and said, "Don't worry, Aunt, with me here, the prince will be fine, and nothing will happen to the Qin residence." Lady White looked at Claire Crawford and perhaps finally understood why Eric Stuart chose her as the Qin princess. This was something that noble young ladies and aristocratic daughters could not remain calm about. Even she, a noble daughter, was trembling in fear. Claire Crawford was not a woman who relied on men to live, which is why she could now reassure the Qin residents. Despite attempts to stop them, someone came to visit Eric Stuart, and Seven Moon couldn't prevent it. "Arthur Wayne, you are the chief guard trusted by His Majesty the most. His Majesty cares for the prince, but the physician of Qin's mansion has stated that no one should disturb him. Today, I will not allow anyone to enter." That day, Claire Crawford stood alone at the door, with Lady White helplessly watching. Compared to the Emperor, Claire Crawford was more suited to stand guard. She deserved the position of Qin's consort. "Lady Qin, I am here under His Majesty's orders. He wants me to see Prince Qin with my own eyes. I cannot leave without meeting him." With that, he attempted to enter, but Claire Crawford blocked his path. "Want to go in? You need her permission first. If she doesn't agree, no one can enter, no matter how formidable the man before her is. Does she look like she would back down?" Chapter 80. I alone am enough. It must be said, with Claire Crawford's demeanor, ordinary people wouldn't dare approach. However, Arthur Wayne wasn't easily intimidated. Despite Claire Crawford's words, he didn't give up, clearly loyal not to the Emperor, but to Prince Lance. Otherwise, why would he insist on entering when the Emperor only cared about Eric Stuart? "Lady Qin, I am acting under orders. please do not obstruct me." Arthur Wayne knew that Eric Stuart was never favored, and he had no intention of currying favor with him. Prince Lance had instructed him before arriving at Quin's mansion to personally assess Eric Stuart's injuries, to see if they were truly severe. Therefore, he was determined to enter at all costs. The physician of Quin's mansion also stepped out, a man in white who appeared neither arrogant nor flattering, saying, "Lady Qin, madam, the prince's injuries are severe and no one should be allowed to enter." Claire Crawford truly admired Phoenix Seymour, who looked delicate and soft. Despite his feminine name, he lived up to it. Moreover, not only was he handsome, but his medical skills were exceptional, and most importantly, he knew how to act appropriately. Seeing someone trying to force their way in, he came out to assist. "Arthur Wayne, as you can see, the physician of Quin's mansion has said no one is allowed to enter. If you force your way in and delay the prince's recovery, who among us can bear the consequences if something happens to him?" Claire Crawford politely stated, blocking the door while looking at Arthur Wayne. Lady White was so terrified that she couldn't bear it. After all, Eric Stuart was not favored in the past, and anyone close to the emperor could come to the Quin estate and cause trouble. Over the years, they've handed over money countless times. Now, with Arthur Wayne causing a commotion, Lady White just wanted to flee, taking Eric Stuart with her. But Claire Crawford was different. She always stood guard at the door, not appearing fearful but ready to face any challenge head-on without a hint of fear. "I'm sorry, Lady Qin, His Majesty has ordered me to personally ensure the safety of Prince Qin. I have no choice." With that, the person attempted to break in, but before he could, Claire Crawford drew the seven-moon sword beside her and pointed it at Arthur Wayne. "Arthur Wayne, I respect you as the top guard of His Majesty, but the royal physician of the Quin estate has already stated that no one is allowed to enter for Prince Quin's safety. I cannot let you in." However, the man would not be easily swayed by Claire's words and was determined to cause trouble. "I'm sorry, Lady Qin, you must be reasonable." Those behind Arthur Wayne were also eager, clearly disregarding the Quin estate. But Claire Crawford was different. She stared at Arthur Wayne for a long time, then mocked, "Reasonable? Since when has the capital been a place of reason? Today, I make it clear, if you insist on barging in and delaying the prince's treatment, then you'll have to get past me first." Claire Crawford was not a weak woman. She had been to the battlefield and even drawn the emperor's bow. She wasn't someone easily intimidated by mere words. "It seems Lady Qin wants to fight me?" Arthur Wayne didn't take Claire Crawford seriously at all, finding her stance amusing. "A young lady should be at home raising children, not wielding a sword here. It seems Arthur Wayne holds me in contempt. Today, I declare here, I alone am enough to deal with Arthur Wayne. If anyone from the Quin estate helps me, it will be considered unfair." As Claire Crawford finished speaking, the sword in her hand suddenly flew out. Arthur Wayne, who initially underestimated Claire Crawford, was unexpectedly knocked to the ground after a few moves, even being stepped on the chest by her. "Quin Princess, a scholar can be killed but not humiliated," Arthur Wayne said, and as Claire Crawford's sword aimed at his chest, he quickly added, "I am sent by His Majesty." "So, he doesn't want to die, does he?" "If he doesn't want to die, he should just say so directly instead of beating around the bush." "Arthur Wayne, I know you. A reckless youth, the only son of the Waynes, who at a young age became a first-class guard beside the emperor. But you must understand, no matter what, you're just a guard. The prince is the son of His Majesty. What do you think will happen if you continue causing trouble here?" Claire Crawford's words made Arthur Wayne calm down completely. Perhaps he really should think carefully. However, Prince Lance had instructed him to see Eric Stuart personally before leaving. He was always secretly supported by Prince Lance and royal consort Florence, so he couldn't disobey Prince Lance. "It seems you still want to take a look. Seven Moon, send a message to my father, saying Arthur Wayne is trying to break into the prince's chamber to harm him. I had no choice but to act to save my husband." Before Seven Moon could understand what was happening, Claire Crawford's sword flew out. If persuasion doesn't work and he still wants to barge in, then apologies are in order. With Arthur Wayne's painful cries, Claire Crawford crippled his wrist, ensuring he could never be a first-class guard again. Not for any other reason, but because he was Prince Lance's man, and Claire Crawford couldn't let him stay. Moreover, based on Arthur Wayne's behavior, causing trouble at the Qin estate and the fearful look of the Dowager White, he must have been arrogant here before. Today, Claire Crawford crippled Arthur Wayne to show everyone that Prince Lance is not the only choice. Eric Stuart is currently favored by the Emperor and will be the successor in the future. Prince Lance is merely the son of royal consort Florence, and even if she holds a noble position, so what? Prince Lance is not the Empress's son, nor is he the crown prince, so there's nothing impressive about him. Arthur Wayne was carried away from the Qin estate by his men. Seven Moon also went to inform Lord Crawford. After comforting Dowager White, Claire Crawford finally went inside. Still lying there? Do you really think you're a patient now? Claire Crawford entered to find Eric Stuart surrounded by blood-soaked bandages, looking quite frightening. However, Claire Crawford knew Eric Stuart was pretending. Rescuing the Emperor was just a play orchestrated by Lord Crawford and Eric Stuart. This was also why Claire Crawford wanted to stop Arthur Wayne from entering. Now that he's gone, there's no need to pretend anymore. Do you really think you're a patient who needs careful care? Princess, the prince is truly injured. Phoenix Seymour, after speaking, somehow produced a black ointment and applied it directly to the wound. This was followed by Eric Stuart's agonizing scream, echoing like thunder. Claire Crawford never expected the other party to actually be injured. How is he really hurt? Wasn't it just acting? Claire Crawford hurriedly moved closer to inspect. Although the ointment had been applied to Eric Stuart's wound, making it pitch black, and despite his screams, it seemed effective. It's okay, it's okay. Eric Stuart forced a smile, trying to assure Claire Crawford that he was fine and that such a minor injury wasn't worth such a scream. Unfortunately, Phoenix Seymour didn't give him the chance. Another agonizing scream erupted, and Eric Stuart was in so much pain that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Phoenix Seymour, do you have a grudge against me? Can't you be gentler? Eric Stuart could no longer endure, abandoning any pretense of being a tough man. He had already screamed twice. What else could he do? Only now does the prince feel pain? Do you know the poison in your body is still in your heart meridian? Now that you've been struck by a sword, your life is at risk. As Phoenix Seymour finished speaking, Claire Crawford seemed to overhear a secret. Poison? Wasn't it just acting? Claire Crawford stared at him, while Eric Stuart kept winking, but Phoenix Seymour acted as if he didn't notice. Phoenix Seymour, tell me, what poison has he been afflicted with? Claire Crawford had no idea what was happening. Wasn't the previous poison already cured? What poison was this? It's nothing much, just congenital cold poison. I've sealed the toxin in his heart meridian, but now he's been struck there, he needs to rest well, or it could be life-threatening. This is no joke. Phoenix Seymour, handsome and skilled in medicine, but perpetually cold. Chapter 81, Claire Crawford hesitates. Claire Crawford looked at Eric Stuart for a long time. Being stared at made Eric Stuart uncomfortable. He knew he shouldn't have deceived Claire Crawford, but seeing her anger, he really didn't dare to tell the truth now. Phoenix Seymour, I want to kill you. Eric Stuart, in his anger, could only vent at Phoenix Seymour, but unfortunately, Phoenix Seymour, twirling a silver needle, wasn't afraid of him at all. Eric Stuart, if you keep secrets from me, we can't walk the same path together. Claire Crawford was furious, her face filled with rage. At this moment, Eric Stuart was truly alarmed and hurriedly got out of bed. I didn't mean to hide it from you. Eric Stuart tried to hold the other's hand, but Claire Crawford shook it off. I don't want to be a widow, Eric Stuart. You better think carefully about what you want. After saying this, Claire Crawford left him behind. She angrily departed, returned to Why My Garden, and still had to tidy up a bit. She wore a light purple cotton dress with a large green leaf skirt trailing behind, surrounded by beauty. Her hair, black as clouds, was simply styled, adorned with a few gold lotus hairpins, making it even more soft and lustrous. Miss, aren't you angry? Willow Green looked at her mistress and knew she was soft inside despite her tough exterior. Seeing her angry but still dressing up, wasn't she preparing to enter the palace? Injured Arthur Wayne, Eric Stuart was still bedridden, and in the palace, she couldn't let her father handle things alone. she had to personally meet the emperor. Currently, the emperor had some favor for Eric Stuart, so if she could still enter the palace to see the emperor, it would prove that the emperor liked Eric Stuart even more. Claire Crawford met Marquis Crawford after he had just dealt with Arthur Wayne's matter. He was truly surprised at how formidable his daughter was, able to defeat the top guard Arthur Wayne so thoroughly. "I never realized before, you can be quite ruthless." Marquis Crawford felt he didn't understand Claire Crawford at all. He used to think his daughter was obedient, but now, Claire Crawford was so capable. Marquis Crawford was puzzled as to why Claire Crawford suddenly became so formidable. She wasn't like this before. "Father, you are the top military marquis, I take you as an example, how could I be any less? Moreover, with Arthur Wayne out, you can place your own person in that position, isn't that beneficial for you?" Claire Crawford's reasoning was sound, and Marquis Crawford didn't argue further. Later, Claire Crawford and Marquis Crawford went to meet the emperor. It was evident that this decisive emperor had aged, unable to sleep through the night, truly having a hard time. Previously indifferent to Eric Stuart, now because Eric Stuart took an arrow for him, he cared for his son, which wasn't easy. "Father, I have come to confess," Claire Crawford said and suddenly knelt on the ground. The emperor had just taken his medicine, the empress was attending to him. While royal consort Florence seemed somewhat redundant. "Father, Arthur Wayne was your top guard, but he tried to break into the prince's chamber when the prince's life was in danger. I had no choice." Claire Crawford knelt on the ground speaking clearly. At this moment, she had to let the emperor know that Arthur Wayne had become someone else's man. The emperor issued a decree to ensure Eric Stuart's recovery and out of concern for him. However, Arthur Wayne's audacious intrusion indicated that those around the emperor were no longer trustworthy. The emperor understood this well, which made the situation seem peculiar. Although he did not speak directly about it, he certainly would not make things difficult for Claire Crawford. "Rise, Eric was severely injured saving me, and I will compensate him in the future," the emperor said. Claire Crawford realized her goal had been achieved. The emperor would remember Eric Stuart's loyalty, and Prince Lance would no longer monopolize the top position. Eric Stuart would gradually become more prominent in the emperor's eyes. With the support of Duke Crawford, Eric Stuart would slowly oppose Prince Lance. Claire Crawford returned to Qin Manor with the emperor's rewards. The manor was now different, with the emperor's attention and several officials waiting outside. "No one is allowed in, the prince needs rest, and no one should disturb him," Claire Crawford commanded. Everyone in Qin Manor obeyed her orders, and no one could change her decisions. Thus, officials wishing to curry favor with Eric Stuart were kept outside. Inside, Amelia Stuart and Jade Stone came to visit Eric Stuart, waiting for Claire Crawford's return. Amelia had a decent relationship with her brother, but Claire Crawford wondered why Jade Stone was there. It seemed unusual for him to visit Eric Stuart without ulterior motives. While Amelia spoke with Eric, Claire conversed with Jade Stone outside. "Did you come to see me?" Claire asked, knowing the answer. Jade Stone nodded, saying, "Yes, I came to see if you're marrying a dying man. You should separate while he's still alive." Claire found his words intriguing but odd. "It seems you came with Princess Amelia," she asserted. Jade Stone's current status was precarious, as the emperor had not yet favored him, making him vulnerable. Yet, his association with Princess Amelia showed he was not foolish. Inside, Eric Stuart was not interested in talking with his sister, feeling uneasy seeing Jade Stone and Claire Crawford chatting outside. "Amelia, what do you think they're discussing out there?" he asked. Eric Stuart was practically grinding his teeth. Amelia Stuart, of course, knew her brother was jealous. She laughed and said, "If you're worried, Brother Qin, you should go out and ask yourself." "Go out? That wouldn't do." He was currently pretending to be severely injured, and there might still be people from the emperor in the Qin estate. He couldn't take the risk. Claire Crawford, after talking with Jade Stone outside for a while and not getting any information, had no choice but to come inside. As a result, she saw Eric Stuart's resentful face. What was wrong with him? Clearly, he was hiding something from her, yet he still put on such an act? "What were you talking about with that guy outside?" My chest hurts. Eric Stuart rarely showed a hint of weakness, hoping Claire Crawford would feel some sympathy for him. But Claire Crawford was still angry and wouldn't play along. If it hurts, go find Phoenix Seymour. I'm not a doctor, I can't help you, she said. In truth, Claire Crawford saw that Eric Stuart was almost fine, which is why she spoke with Amelia Stuart. She planned to ask Phoenix Seymour for the details later. Asking Eric Stuart now wouldn't guarantee an answer. Sister-in-law, I must leave now. Please see me off, Claire Crawford said, then went outside to see Amelia Stuart off. Ever since breaking off her engagement with the Qin family, she had immersed herself in the military camp, much like a young boy. The cold poison in Brother Qin is the same that was in his mother. He never told anyone because he doesn't trust others and wants to find out who killed his mother. These words, Eric Stuart couldn't say. For years, he bore the burden alone. Claire Crawford nodded, understanding that Amelia Stuart shared this to calm her anger. She was just sometimes stubborn. Eric Stuart kept everything to himself, and if she didn't notice, he wouldn't speak. Were they still partners? Partners should trust each other, and if Eric Stuart didn't trust her, she couldn't truly be his partner. She was hesitating, pondering whether Eric Stuart truly trusted her. Chapter 82, You shouldn't scheme against a widow that day. Amelia Stuart and Jade Stone left. Amelia, who often behaved like a man despite her beauty, had lost her illusions about others ever since her marriage was manipulated by her father. She spent her days and nights in the barracks, not resembling a princess at all. That day, Jade Stone and Amelia visited a small tavern and did not return to the camp. Jade seemed a bit downcast, and Amelia felt no better. Two sorrowful souls found much to discuss. Stop dreaming about the Duke's wife, Jade Stone. You have great potential but met the wrong person. I'll promote you, Amelia said while drinking, intending to comfort him since he served under her. Jade just smiled and replied, Princess Amelia, many envy your noble status, but it's a pity your marriage was never yours to decide. Are you truly content with that? What could she do if she wasn't? Perhaps only when drunk could she express such strong discontent, but ultimately she couldn't resist, could she? Jade Stone, what are you implying? Amelia felt a bit dizzy. Though she could usually handle her liquor, she suddenly felt lightheaded but didn't pay much attention. Your Highness, maybe together we can change our predetermined fates, Jade said, then carried Amelia upstairs. That night, the entire capital was searching for an assassin, with every inn being inspected, eventually reaching this small tavern. Prince Lance, personally appointed by the Emperor to investigate, was already frustrated and was shocked to find his sister involved with Jade Stone. Amelia sobered up, seeing Jade beside her, and understood what had happened. Jade must have done something, otherwise, she wouldn't have passed out after just a bit of alcohol. Amelia, what is going on? Prince Lance asked, surprised, and not intending to cover it up. Amelia wasn't close to him, having tried to win him over in the past but failed due to her stubbornness. He had long wanted to overthrow her, and now fate had handed him the opportunity. Brother Lance, you've seen it all. There's no need for me to explain. Why don't you take everyone outside so I can dress? I'll give father an explanation myself, Amelia spoke defiantly. Lance, somewhat angered, stormed out, knowing that what happened that night would spread, with no one willing to hide it. Once outside, he instructed, send word to Eric Stuart about Amelia and Jade Stone's situation. Lance, relishing the drama, sat back to watch the spectacle unfold. After Prince Lance left, Amelia Stuart dressed and immediately drew her sword, thrusting it towards Jade Stone. Jade Stone did not dodge, allowing Amelia to pierce his arm. You shouldn't scheme against a widowed woman, Amelia said, still not over her anger. She had been living recklessly in the military camp to forget past events, only to be plotted against by someone like him. Your Highness, if you agree to marry me, I promise not to scheme against you anymore. In fact, in the entire capital, I am the most suitable for you, Jade Stone calmly replied, having already planned his justification. He wanted Amelia Stuart to choose him. Your Highness, His Majesty is wary of the military power of the general. By using you as bait, as long as you hold the power of the Forbidden Guards and the patrol camp, you will always be His Majesty's pawn. But if you marry me, you can be a beloved princess and a daughter, Jade Stone explained, having thoroughly investigated the situation. Among all the people he looked into, this princess was the best choice for his ambitions. Jade Stone, I want to kill you, Eric Stewart exclaimed, truly agitated upon receiving the news at Quin's mansion. Claire Crawford couldn't stop him in time as Eric rushed out, with Claire following closely behind but arriving a moment too late. However, Eric, being injured, was no match for Jade Stone. Ultimately, it was Claire Crawford who stopped the two from fighting, but Eric was so furious he coughed up blood. Prince Quin, can't you see the current situation? Each of us is a pawn in His Majesty's hands. The only way to change this outcome is for you and me to join forces. I can assure you, once I take over the Forbidden Guards and the patrol camp, I will not be your enemy. Eric Stewart was too angry to listen, his entire body trembling with rage. Jade Stone, you want me to sacrifice Amelia? Dream on. Eric was still furious and wanted to attack, but this time Amelia stopped him. Brother Quin, don't be impulsive, Amelia cautioned, understanding the Emperor's intentions. The capital was likely to be reorganized soon, and this might be their only chance to change things. Jade Stone makes sense. I am just a princess, and the power in my hands will eventually have to be surrendered, Amelia realized. The Emperor would never let her hold power forever, so rather than being used by her father, she preferred to make her own choice. Are you crazy? Do you know how many spies are here? How dare you discuss these matters here? Hurry back, Claire Crawford scolded, exasperated. Eric, usually smart, seemed confused at this critical moment. Prince Lance deliberately sent someone to deliver the news, hoping to see Eric make a mistake. Amelia Stewart, regardless of her choices, should not get involved with Eric Stewart right now. Ultimately, Claire Crawford forced the person to return. Prince Lance originally thought that if possible, Eric Stewart would cause a commotion over Amelia Stewart's situation, which would inevitably reach the Emperor. However, unexpectedly, Eric Stewart not only held back but also managed to leave. What surprised Prince Lance the most was that Jade Stone truly had the capability to scheme against Amelia Stewart. It seemed that Jade Stone was indeed someone capable of great deeds. The incident involving Amelia Stewart caused quite a stir. The first to be angered was the Emperor, as Amelia Stewart held significant power, meaning whoever she married would become part of her faction. Consequently, Jade Stone was ordered by the Emperor to be detained. That day, Amelia Stewart first went to the Quin Palace, where Claire Crawford had been waiting for her. After all, the person Eric Stewart cared about most was Amelia Stewart, and regardless of her decision, she had to inform Eric Stewart. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Eric Stewart, though furious, still managed to act a bit. Recently, the Emperor sent many good medicines, indicating he did not suspect anything. However, this also meant Eric Stewart couldn't leave casually and had to stay at the Quin Palace. Brother Quin, Amelia Stewart only showed a bit of her girlish side when she was with Eric Stewart. Looking at his angry face, she smiled and said, Brother Quin, what are you doing? Amelia is getting married, you should be happy. For many years, Amelia Stewart had not been able to marry. In the royal family, there is no true affection. Those who seem endlessly doting may actually want to control you, so you must make your own choices. Amelia Stewart had thought it through. Although Jade Stone wasn't perfect, he was someone who could escape the Emperor's control. Perhaps transferring her power to Jade Stone would finally free her. This was Amelia Stewart's final decision. Brother, if you can one day sit in that position, I hope for unity across the land and peace, at least not like it is now. Amelia Stewart actually knew everything but had to pretend not to know. Chapter 83, I once wished my sister would never be my sister-in-law. Thanks to the Queen's intervention, the wedding of Amelia Stewart and Jade Stone was finally set for the third day of the next month. In reality, Amelia Stewart's offer seemed like a commoner son-in-law marrying into the family, yet Jade Stone's status was elevated significantly. Previously, everyone knew that Duke Crawford did not favor Jade Stone, but out of respect for Amelia Stewart, he had to show some consideration. Eric Stewart and Claire Crawford were present. On that day, Amelia Stuart wore a red Hangzhou silk gown embroidered with flowers, a pale pink thin silk skirt trailing on the ground, and a light golden shawl embroidered with flowers. Her sleek black hair was styled in a huibone bun, adorned with a red agate phoenix hairpin bordered with jade, her hands wore gold bracelets with bells, her waist was cinched with a white silk belt with floral patterns, and she carried a camellia-shaped sachet made of gold thread, wearing deep red silk embroidered shoes. She looked as beautiful as the full moon in autumn. Although she did not show her emotions clearly, she was finally getting married. However, when the banquet began, Amelia Stuart expressed a desire to go outside to meet someone, leaving Jade Stone to entertain the guests. "You must disdain me now, right?" "I don't know any other way to win against Duke Crawford," Jade Stone admitted. He simply didn't want to lose. Duke Crawford would not easily let him off, and outside of Amelia Stuart, Jade Stone had no better option. Claire Crawford smiled faintly. She was elegantly dressed that day in a turquoise cloak and a flowing long skirt, her complexion fresh, her demeanor graceful. Her black hair was neatly styled, adorned with several pearl hairpins with silver edges, enhancing its luster and smoothness. "Whether others value you or not doesn't matter, you've already done what you wanted, haven't you? Perhaps you have your own struggles, though I don't agree with your methods, I can understand them. I just hope you don't let Princess Amelia down." Claire Crawford understood his struggles. This path was the quickest way to reach the center of power. Jade Stone gave a faint smile. The decision was made, and there was no turning back. "I toast to you, my sister. All these years, I haven't had a single friend. You, my sister, are also my friend." Although today was a day of celebration, it was clear that Jade Stone felt sadness within. Eric Stuart, who already disliked him, grew more displeased seeing him converse so much with Claire Crawford and decided to intervene. "Jade Stone, I warn you, after you marry, if you dare to mistreat Amelia even a little, I will personally take your life," Eric Stuart said fiercely. Just a few days ago, this man dared to dream about his wife, and now he has his sights set on his sister. Amelia is the sister he cherishes most, and he wishes her happiness above all else. "Prince Qin, you better take care of yourself. If you ever mistreat my sister, I will stop at nothing to take her away, and you'll regret it." Claire Crawford felt a bit of a headache. What was happening? Weren't they talking about Amelia Stuart? How did she get dragged into this? It was truly confusing. She decided to leave the two men to argue and went to find Amelia Stuart. She found Amelia in the backyard, talking to Rei Qin. That day, Rei Qin looked more spirited, like a different person. He wore a jet black outfit, a silver lion belt, his long hair neatly combed, eyes bright as stars, tall and elegant. "I once hoped my sister would never be my sister-in-law, yet now I've lost my elder brother forever, and this time, I also lose my sister." Rei Qin didn't want to witness this scene, but now he couldn't avoid it. His elder brother, who always cared for him, was no longer there, fallen in battle, and the sister-in-law he cherished was now marrying someone else. Amelia Stuart remained calm, reaching out to accept the heart-shaped jade pendant. "Did your brother carve this himself?" Amelia Stuart hid her emotions well, though a hint of sadness could be seen in her eyes. Rei Qin nodded and said, "My brother worked on it for a whole day and night before leaving for battle, but he never got the chance to give it to you himself." Amelia Stuart frowned, seemingly wanting to say something but hesitated repeatedly. "Sister-in-law, this is the last time I call you that. From today, we have no ties." Rei Qin was still heartbroken, not just for himself but for his late brother. Finally, Amelia Stuart couldn't hold back, stepping forward to embrace him and gently whispering in his ear, "Rei Qin, promise me, don't take over your brother's army, don't follow his path. Both your brother and I want you to be happy." That day, Rei Qin watched Amelia Stuart leave. It is said that men do not shed tears easily, they only fall when the heart truly aches. If the pain is real, tears will fall silently, without warning. It's too late, I won't forgive anyone who harmed my elder brother. Even if I lack the power to avenge him, I can still do something. Rei Qin's voice was not loud, as if she was encouraging herself. Even when facing a more formidable enemy, it didn't matter. Claire Crawford didn't mean to eavesdrop, she was just caught in a dilemma. Leaving immediately might draw attention, but staying meant overhearing this conversation. Amelia Stewart, with her exceptional martial skills, surely knew Claire Crawford was hiding behind the rockery. "Sister-in-law is here," Amelia Stewart seemed unconcerned, not mentioning the earlier conversation at all. "Oh, I just felt a bit stuffy inside, so I came out for a walk and to wish you a happy wedding." Claire Crawford scratched her head awkwardly, thinking she should not feel embarrassed. But Amelia Stewart wasn't someone who blushed easily. She laughed and said, "Can sister-in-law still drink? Claire Crawford? Today?" Claire Crawford truly didn't understand what was happening, as many guests were still waiting outside for the wedding banquet. Amelia Stewart wasn't an ordinary person. She couldn't just sit in the bridal chamber waiting for the groom to return while guests outside waited for her to toast. "Don't mind the guests outside, they are not here to genuinely celebrate with me, only because of the power I hold." At this moment, Amelia Stewart felt very uncomfortable. "All right, then I'll drink a little with you. Today is your big day, you shouldn't get drunk." Claire Crawford initially thought Amelia Stewart's unique personality might lead her to drink more when happy. After all, Amelia Stewart couldn't be like her, marrying merely for alliance, there should be some feelings involved. But after drinking, Amelia Stewart spoke more than usual, and someone who seldom smiled suddenly smiled beautifully. "No one cares about this wedding, everyone is only interested in the leader's power." "But what did I do wrong?" Claire Crawford didn't know how to comfort her, as women here couldn't control their marriages, and a loveless marriage was surely tragic. "Don't look at me like that, I'm not drunk. I just want to find someone to confide in. I can't talk to Brother Qin about this, so it's up to you, sister-in-law. You must keep this a secret for me." "All right then." Claire Crawford thought Amelia Stewart was drunk, but she wasn't, she just wanted to vent. This truly startled Claire Crawford, fearing there might be a scene, but now she felt relieved. Just then, there seemed to be a commotion in the front hall, prompting Claire Crawford and Amelia Stewart to rush out to see. Chapter 84, Rebellion at the Princess's Mansion. Vincent Crawford appeared, looking quite miserable. Jade Stone remained calm, watching as Vincent, supported by a maid, came to cause a scene. Claire Crawford thought there was certainly something interesting to witness. What kind of situation was this? She quietly returned to Eric Stewart's side and casually asked, "What's going on here?" Eric Stewart, who had been watching the commotion for a while, was contemplating how to escalate the situation to the point where they might call off their engagement. "Isn't that Jade Stone's little lover causing trouble?" "Your second sister is really bold to come here and stir things up," Eric Stewart remarked, munching on snacks while observing the scene intently. "You are not allowed to interfere, this is Princess Amelia's matter." Claire Crawford knew Eric Stewart too well now. In the past, he would have rushed to intervene, unable to bear seeing Amelia Stewart suffer. But now, Eric Stewart could sit calmly and watch the drama unfold. "Why are you still calling her princess? You should call her sister." Eric Stewart intentionally dodged Claire's question, secretly wanting to escalate the situation. However, since Claire had spoken, he could only signal to Seven Moon to temporarily stand down. Vincent Crawford no longer cared about saving face, he was more concerned about why Jade Stone could marry Amelia Stewart. Was it a declaration of war against him? But before Jade Stone could speak, Amelia Stewart was the one who spoke up. "Today is the home of Amelia Stewart." If Vincent Crawford secretly sought out Jade Stone, she would not have asked a single question. Unfortunately, Vincent Crawford came here today to cause trouble, bringing disgrace to the entire royal family. At this moment, Amelia Stewart also noticed that Prince Lance was following behind Vincent Crawford. Although Prince Lance seemed to be there to offer congratulations, he was sitting among the guests, ready to watch the spectacle. "Miss Crawford, you are the legitimate daughter of the Marquis' household, you should be mindful of your conduct in such situations," Amelia Stewart spoke up. If not for the royal family's sake today, she would not have intervened to handle Vincent Crawford. But Vincent Crawford was insistent, believing that Jade Stone marrying Amelia Stewart was a public humiliation to her. She couldn't let it go, could Jade Stone? She was tormented every night, unable to sleep, but how could Jade Stone so quickly and happily marry Amelia Stewart? "Jade Stone, can't you speak to me yourself? Why hide behind Amelia Stewart?" Vincent Crawford disregarded her parents' warnings and secretly ran out. Upon seeing Jade Stone in a crimson robe entertaining guests, her anger became uncontrollable. She couldn't accept this outcome. In her heart, Jade Stone was meant to always be behind her, not the other way around. This was absolutely unacceptable. I'm sorry, Miss Crawford. Jade Stone was cherished by you, but ultimately, we were not meant to be. Jade Stone is merely a mortal man. Having married Princess Amelia, he must devote himself to the princess. I hope Miss Crawford maintains decorum today and doesn't cause an embarrassing scene, Jade Stone said, after which Vincent Crawford slapped him. How could she endure this? You said it yourself, you said I was the only one in your heart, Vincent Crawford frowned, clinging to a sliver of hope. She hoped Jade Stone would leave Amelia Stuart and run away with her, even if they were later hunted by the royal family. But all of this was merely Vincent Crawford's beautiful illusion of love. Claire Crawford had not yet reached the point of turning against Vincent, so she pretended to offer advice. Sister, what are you doing? Brother Jade has now married the princess, you should go back. Father won't be pleased if he finds out. Claire Crawford feigned concern, while Eric Stuart observed, as if watching a sly little fox. His wife was truly talented. A few words made Vincent Crawford even angrier. Claire Crawford's words were deliberately provocative, meant to infuriate Vincent Crawford further, to utterly embarrass her, and not let Jade Stone off easily. Why did she now seem like a madwoman, always loving but never receiving? Get out, Vincent Crawford shouted in anger, pushing Claire Crawford aside. Her eyes were red, looking very pitiful. Yet, those who are pitiful must have something detestable about them. Today, Vincent Crawford's disgrace was not only her own but also affected Vincent's reputation. Amelia Stuart looked helpless and finally spoke, Miss Crawford, if Jade is willing, I can allow you entry. This so-called entry naturally meant Amelia Stuart as the main wife, with Vincent Crawford as the concubine. To Vincent Crawford, this was merely a tactic by Amelia Stuart to humiliate her. At this moment, Jade Stone spoke up. I'm sorry, Miss Crawford, I have married Princess Amelia. For the rest of my life, I belong to her. Highness the Princess. I will always protect her, never leaving her side, and I will not marry another woman. Jade Stone's vow could be said to have completely turned the situation around. Previously, everyone knew that Jade Stone was raised in the Marquis' residence, and it was natural for Vincent Crawford to have feelings for Jade Stone. But now it seems that Jade Stone suddenly marrying the princess is a clear sign of betrayal. Currently, Jade Stone expressed in front of everyone that he would marry the princess and that Amelia Stuart would be his only love for life, indicating that Vincent Crawford still couldn't let go. Claire Crawford saw that things were almost settled and hurriedly approached. Second sister, you really went too far today. With that, she struck Vincent Crawford on the neck. This time, everyone witnessed Claire Crawford's strength. Eric Stuart reluctantly dragged Vincent Crawford away, complaining about his weight and muttering, Jade Stone, can't you handle your own people? Do I owe you something? Claire Crawford noticed Eric Stuart's grumbling, although it was clearly Seven Moon who acted while he merely gave orders. Why so much talk? Shut up, Claire Crawford said angrily. At this moment, Eric Stuart obediently made a gesture to zip his lips. Prince Qin, once a dominating force, now obediently followed orders, which was quite surprising. Claire Crawford, feeling helpless, took the unconscious Vincent Crawford back home. In the Marquis' residence, Vincent was on the verge of exploding with anger. The first wife kept crying, but no matter how much she cried, she couldn't match the beauty of Vincent's concubine's tears, which only irritated Vincent further. Stop crying. You raised the child this way, and you still have the nerve to weep? Vincent was furious, glaring at the first wife for a long time, almost hitting her in his rage. The living room was filled with broken porcelain, and Vincent was truly enraged, leaving the first wife too scared to argue back. Claire Crawford and Eric Stuart entered to find the first wife crying and Vincent red-eyed with anger. Father, what's wrong? Why are you so angry? I've already brought second sister back. Claire Crawford's mention of Vincent Crawford only added fuel to the fire. How could he have a daughter like that? Vincent Crawford not only was ungrateful but also embarrassed him publicly by causing a scene at the princess's residence. Did she even have the face to return? You still have the nerve to come back? You might as well find a rope and hang yourself. I'm too ashamed to deal with you, Vincent said, causing the first wife to start wailing again. Marquis, oh Marquis! She cried, attempting to cling to Vincent, but he pushed her away. Marquis, Vincent is your legitimate daughter, your own flesh and blood, you can't treat her like this. The first wife was truly desperate, resorting to tears. Vincent was so angry he could only snort, regretting having such a daughter. But Claire Crawford, from start to finish, watched the scene with amusement. The first wife's current predicament was entirely her own doing, and no one else was to blame. The same went for Vincent Crawford. Claire had promised to avenge the original owner, and now was the perfect opportunity. Father, it's too late for ropes. I saw second sister embarrassing herself at the princess's residence, so I knocked her out and brought her back. Don't be angry, father. After all, the princess's residence is full of people and chatter, and I was only worried about your reputation being damaged. The Duke Crawford was still dizzy, and Eric Stewart added fuel to the fire, ordering someone to carry Vincent Crawford up. Father-in-law, what is this? At this moment, Duke Crawford saw Vincent Crawford and wished he could throw him straight out, let alone manage him anymore. Now, with Vincent Crawford thrown onto a chair, Duke Crawford still wore a disgusted expression. You're a good child. If it weren't for you, our family's reputation would have been completely lost. Duke Crawford patted Claire Crawford on the shoulder, and Claire just gave a faint smile. The disgrace was naturally for others to bear. However, Duke Crawford would not be able to show his face for a while, so the affairs of the household would have to be entrusted to her and Eric Stewart. Consequently, people would know that Duke Crawford had chosen Eric Stewart. Vincent Crawford was completely under house arrest, and Duke Crawford used illness as an excuse not to leave the residence, temporarily handing the Iron Armor Army to Eric Stewart. Most importantly, Duke Crawford had already informed the Emperor, who, after having his life saved by Eric Stewart, also found him agreeable. Therefore, Prince Lance was furious. The Duke's household was not at ease, and neither was Prince Lance's. Within Prince Lance's residence, there was an uproar. Even Emily Crawford didn't dare approach, with many concubines already in Prince Lance's household. She was even less favored because of Duke Crawford's actions. Look at the good deeds your father has done. Why did he turn to favor Qin? It seems I must now find another more capable person. Prince Lance's words had another meaning, and although Emily Crawford didn't understand court politics, she was truly frightened. Why did it turn out this way? She only hoped that one day Prince Lance would love her as she loved him, but after marrying him, she realized Prince Lance was not as he appeared. Yet Emily Crawford still liked Prince Lance, liked him to the point of madness. Therefore, she dared not contradict Prince Lance, nor did she dare to argue. My father might have his reasons. Emily Crawford spoke while pondering a solution to the problem. However, Prince Lance fundamentally did not trust Emily Crawford at this point and angrily said, heartfelt? As far as I see it, your father, the old fox, is probably looking to collaborate with King Qin. Emily Crawford, think carefully. If one day your father chooses Eric Stewart, then your position as Prince Lance's consort might not last long. Prince Lance made it clear to Emily Crawford, believing that someone as intelligent as her would certainly take action. After all, he had already investigated the matter of Emily Crawford faking a pregnancy to marry him and had yet to react, knowing that doing so would be futile and only bring the issue to light again. At that point, his reputation would also be at risk. Therefore, Prince Lance hoped Emily Crawford would be wise and useful, so that Lord Crawford would know whom to choose. If one day Lord Crawford truly chose Eric Stewart, he would show no mercy. Claire Crawford returned to King Qin's mansion, feeling truly exhausted during this period. Eric Stewart pretended to be severely injured, and the warehouse in King Qin's mansion was filled with medicine bestowed by the Emperor. Claire Crawford thought she should make use of those rare herbs to create something beneficial. So, that evening, Claire Crawford decided to relax a bit, bathe thoroughly, and prepared to rest comfortably. As she got into bed, she found Eric Stewart, already bathed and lying obediently on the bed. Why are you here? Claire Crawford asked, frowning. Eric Stewart sensed something was off. He had only not slept here for a few days, yet his wife seemed so distant. Something was amiss. "I've bathed and smell nice," Eric Stewart said, appearing very obedient, as if he knew someone wanted to kick him out of bed. Thus, he was determined not to let Claire Crawford push him off. "What does that have to do with me?" Claire Crawford was quite irritated. She had the large bed all to herself, and now someone wanted to share it with her. It was too much. But she couldn't just kick him out, could she? "You see, I'm well now. If you make me sleep outside, people will laugh at me," Eric Stewart said seriously, as if it were true. However, if the prince did not sleep in the princess's room, wouldn't that be more embarrassing for the princess? The two shared a blanket, and in the June weather, Claire Crawford wanted to sleep hugging a cold stone. Yet Eric Stewart deliberately moved closer, even trying to wrap an arm around her waist. "If you don't need this hand anymore, I can cut it off," Claire Crawford warned. Eric Stewart pretended to sleep, closed his eyes, turned away, and moved his hand away from Claire Crawford. "The princess is quite fierce. May I ask how to win her favor?" The next morning, Phoenix Seymour hurriedly went to find Claire Crawford. "Your Highness, today the first pavilion is auctioning an icefire lotus, which is beneficial for the prince's health." "So what? Go bid for it. Why come to me?" Claire Crawford stared at Phoenix Seymour for a while before reluctantly asking, "Do you need me to send someone with you?" Phoenix Seymour's face twisted as he replied, "Today is the 15th, the first pavilion only welcomes people of status." "Only people of status? Isn't having money enough?" Anyway, since she was free, Claire Crawford put down the herb she was holding and casually placed a medicinal pill into a scented sachet, a pill made from the Emperor's gifted medicine. "I happen to be free, so I'll accompany you," Claire Crawford said, then went to change into luxurious attire. She wore a light brown robe with floral patterns, a red and white silk skirt embroidered with flowing designs, and a light pink cloak. Her smooth hair was styled elegantly with a blue glass hairpin, her wrist adorned with a garnet bracelet, and a blue silk belt with floral embroidery and long tassels, from which hung a purple orchid-scented sachet. She wore light purple embroidered silk shoes, appearing both radiant and dignified. Phoenix Seymour followed behind her, and upon reaching the first pavilion, they saw the pavilion master already waiting. Before Claire Crawford could introduce herself, the pavilion master said, "Welcome, Princess of Qin, please enter the premium room." "Oh, not bad. This first pavilion is interesting." They knew her identity without her saying a word. But when she turned around, she noticed Phoenix Seymour sweating profusely. "Is it hot?" "It shouldn't be." Phoenix Seymour is usually as composed as ice, never flustered. As it turned out, when Claire Crawford entered, Phoenix Seymour was stopped at the door. "Sorry, Princess of Qin, but those with the surname Seymour are not allowed inside the first pavilion." Claire Crawford looked at the pavilion master, smiling politely. "What is this situation?" The Seymour surname? Phoenix Seymour? Did you offend someone?" Claire Crawford asked in confusion, and Phoenix Seymour shook his head. Claire Crawford couldn't go in alone, so she took out a gold bar and handed it over. "The pavilion master seems kind-hearted, could you make an exception?" The person was agreeable and lifted the restriction after speaking. "Let Phoenix Seymour enter, but he must wear a mask, specifically a cat head mask." To be honest, Phoenix Seymour's serious demeanor paired with that cat mask was quite impressive. Claire Crawford entered and went straight to a private room, observing the grand scene of this first house. Below was a golden lotus stage, adorned with lanterns, where a dozen beautiful women were dancing. If someone fancied one of them, they would throw a golden lotus flower in their hand, and that beauty could then entertain the guest. Claire Crawford watched and shook her head, saying, "Men are indeed all lustful." Phoenix Seymour nodded in agreement. Then, they saw Claire Crawford throw down 2 golden lotus flowers, calling up 2 beauties. Phoenix Seymour? Claire Crawford, men are lustful, and so are women. She found the beauties pleasing to the eye, which lifted her mood. Regardless of Phoenix Seymour's surprise, even if given a companion, Phoenix Seymour wasn't as at ease as she was, feeling awkward with a beauty by his side. "Why are you so tense?" "Someone who doesn't know might think something's wrong with you," Claire Crawford said, shaking her head helplessly. Since they were there, and it was a place for entertainment, why not enjoy it to the fullest? Being so tense, how could one have fun later? If there were beauties, were there any handsome men too? Wouldn't calling some handsome men to entertain be nice as well? More choices mean more fun, after all. Chapter 86, Do We Still Need Dignity? The first house was lively, with singing and dancing, even giving one the feeling of being at home. Claire Crawford kept smiling, looking at the beauty beside her and at Phoenix Seymour, who seemed on the verge of tears. Although she was a bit curious, she didn't say anything. Everyone has their own secrets, and if someone doesn't want to share, there's no need to expose it. The auction began. Initially, there were unimportant items, and Claire Crawford glanced over them. While she was enjoying her food and drink, a woman from the opposite room approached. This woman was a dancer from the first house, but she was only there to deliver a message. Your servant greets Lady Qin. The gentleman over there says if Lady Qin desires anything, just let him know, and he will purchase it for you. After conveying the message, Claire Crawford nodded. In truth, she was more curious about who the person on the other side was. However, since the person didn't show themselves, she couldn't actively seek them out. Even if she suspected they might have a favorable impression of her, she had to pretend as if nothing was happening. Since they said so, they would certainly intervene at the right moment. Whether the person bought the medicinal herbs she needed and gifted them to her, or intended to oppose her, neither would be beneficial. Phoenix Seymour, do you see? Someone is deliberately trying to prevent us from obtaining this herb. Do you have any thoughts? Claire Crawford felt that the opponent seemed difficult to deal with, so it was best to be cautious. Ultimately, they needed the herbs, so nothing could go wrong. If the Duchess cannot obtain this herb, then the Duke himself must come. Phoenix Seymour said with a serious expression, feeling truly bullied. Was he being underestimated? Claire Crawford was so angry that she gritted her teeth and ate some pine nuts. During the auction, Claire Crawford raised her bid every time, and indeed, the opponent was wealthy, always bidding higher to win. Claire Crawford was frustrated. Could it be a madman? It shouldn't be. She's as beautiful as a flower and has never offended anyone, so who is trying to provoke her? Therefore, she decided to visit the opposite room before it was time for the Icefire Lotus. She found out it was none other than Prince Lance. My goodness! Claire Crawford nearly cursed out loud. Has Prince Lance lost his mind? What does he want? She must not let him know why she's here, otherwise, the Icefire Lotus will never be hers. When Prince Lance saw Claire Crawford, he beamed. Miss Crawford, what a coincidence, care to join me? Prince Lance clearly said this on purpose, knowing she couldn't sit down, just to annoy her. How shameless, bullying right at the door. Does he have no shame? All right, thank you, Prince Lance. Claire Crawford smiled, not at all polite, and boldly walked in, sitting opposite Prince Lance. At this moment, Prince Lance truly had no idea what Claire Crawford was up to. She soon left and returned, acting as if nothing had happened. Prince Lance, have a drink. Claire Crawford poured him a cup, poured herself one too, and enjoyed eating and drinking. Outside, the atmosphere was lively. Soon, it was time for a set of golden silk soft armor, and Claire Crawford started bidding. However, Prince Lance would not let Claire Crawford have her way, so every time she bid, he would bid higher. Claire Crawford was irritated, frowning continuously. I hate to see a beauty frown. If Miss Crawford asks nicely, I will surely give her the golden silk soft armor. Ask nicely? Claire Crawford felt that the word beg did not exist in her dictionary. Is Prince Lance really determined to go against me? Claire Crawford provoked, intentionally trying to anger him further. Prince Lance always raised the stakes to force the opponent to beg, and now that he had a chance to overpower her, he wouldn't let it slip away. The price for the soft gold armor rose from 1,000 taels to 100,000 before Prince Lance finally won. Miss Crawford, you were buying it for someone else, weren't you? Prince Lance was smug, thinking he had thwarted her gift and proved his prowess, but it was just childish immaturity. Claire Crawford gave him a thumbs up, mocking, impressive, what else can you say now? Some people never grow up, there's always a difference among individuals. When it came to the Icefire Lotus, Claire Crawford began her real battle. Prince Lance continued his tactic, always outbidding her slightly. Unfortunately for him, when he bid 11,000 taels, Claire Crawford stopped and called for the host. "Lady Qin, do you have any instructions?" The host, experienced in such matters, knew better than to get involved in conflicts. "Is it possible to have credit here?" Claire Crawford asked, making it clear who she was referring to. Prince Lance, furious, retorted, "Rest assured, I am not so poor that I need credit." Claire Crawford smiled as Lin Lung brought in a chest full of gold. "Prince Lance, I meant 10,000 taels of gold. If you can't produce it, the ice fire lotus is mine. If you wish to ask for credit, I advise against it. The emperor has recently shown favor to my family. If I report this to him, claiming I need the ice fire lotus for my family's health, you might find yourself in trouble." Prince Lance never expected to be outmaneuvered by a mere girl. Claire had sent someone to fetch gold from the Qin estate. Seeing he was about to lose and face reprimand from the emperor, he had no choice but to concede. "Fine, I was going to let you have it anyway. It's just a small matter, if you want it, take it." Prince Lance tried to save face with shameless words. Claire Crawford, unbothered, replied, "Prince Lance, you're wrong. You didn't let me have it, you lost because you couldn't outbid me." Prince Lance stormed off in anger, and Claire instructed the host, "Fetch the ice fire lotus, I'll be waiting in my room." The host, wise enough not to offend Claire, promptly sent someone to retrieve it. When Claire returned to her room, she found a beautiful woman there. Dressed in a 5-colored floral silk robe with a red mink fur cloak, her presence exuded a subtle aura. Her black hair was styled elegantly with a silver and jade hairpin. Phoenix Seymour seemed familiar yet fearful of the woman, retreating until cornered by her. "Am I interrupting the two of you being affectionate? I'm truly sorry. You didn't even greet me, so I didn't know you wanted to use this place." Claire Crawford's large eyes were clearly intrigued by others' gossip. She had no intention of leaving and even seemed to want to order another bottle of wine to watch the romantic scene unfold. "Princess Qin, I've admired you for a long time. My name is Pearl Blossom, and meeting you today is fate. Consider the ice fire lotus as a gift from me." After Pearl Blossom spoke, Claire Crawford was genuinely surprised. This woman was truly generous, and from her attire, it was clear she was no ordinary person. Her identity was indeed not simple. "No, you can't. This time, I'm the one interrupting. I'll leave right away and don't need anything, not even the gift." Phoenix Seymour said, his words a bit stammered, and he intended to leave immediately, but the guards outside forcibly held him back. Chapter 87, The Meeting of Two Women. "I already said I want to give you the ice fire lotus. Once I give something, there's no reason to take it back." Pearl Blossom, clearly a willful and arrogant young lady, said this while glancing at Claire Crawford. At this moment, Claire was just short of grabbing a small chair to watch the commotion. Who would have thought she'd suddenly be seen as a rival in love? She had no relationship with Phoenix Seymour at all. She was completely innocent, yet somehow everything seemed to involve her. "Your Highness, let's go." Phoenix Seymour finally shook his head, filled with emotion, but it seemed like he was giving up on something. It was hard to understand what he was thinking. Claire Crawford had no interest in guessing the thoughts of a man. She only felt that they might have some unresolved feelings, perhaps unable to express them because of her presence. "All right then." Claire Crawford smiled throughout the whole ordeal, eventually taking the ice fire lotus. Pearl Blossom insisted that if they didn't take it, she would personally deliver it to the Qin manor. After Phoenix Seymour widened his eyes, he finally decided to take the ice fire lotus. On the way back, he looked dejected, as if faced with a great trouble. "Phoenix Seymour, why the long face? That young lady is beautiful and decisive. Any debts of gratitude will be repaid by your lord." Phoenix Seymour suddenly opened his eyes wide, looked at Claire Crawford, inexplicably apologized, and then got off the carriage. Claire Crawford sat bewildered in the carriage, not thinking much of it, wondering if Phoenix Seymour was being overly tense. Even though the first tower had some influence in the capital, it wasn't enough to make Phoenix Seymour so agitated, was it? Upon returning to Quin's manor, Claire Crawford became busy with other matters. Meanwhile, Phoenix Seymour didn't return to Quinn's manor but headed to the camp instead. Last night, after Claire Crawford fell asleep, Eric Stewart quietly embraced her, making him exceptionally cheerful today. As a result, he spent the entire day at the arena, exhausting himself to the point where Chief Hu almost conceded defeat. "Your Highness, Physician Seymour is here to see you," looking as if someone kicked him, said Chief Hu, a rough man who never paid attention to his words. Eric Stewart also noticed Phoenix Seymour. He had been taking Phoenix Seymour's medicine for days, and his health had improved significantly. "Phoenix Seymour, aren't you the one who hates the camp the most?" Eric Stewart stepped down from the arena, allowing Chief Hu to finally breathe a sigh of relief. Phoenix Seymour hesitated, appearing as if he had something to say. Eric Stewart, in a good mood, asked, "Phoenix Seymour, why are you hesitating? Just speak your mind." Eric Stewart detested people who were indecisive, likening it to being like a woman. Phoenix Seymour looked up at Eric Stewart, unsure of how to begin. "If you won't speak, then leave," Eric Stewart said, his patience wearing thin. Why come to him and not speak? What kind of ailment was this? "Your Highness," Phoenix Seymour finally spoke, his usually reserved demeanor now even more silent. "Speak," Eric Stewart frowned, glancing at Phoenix Seymour. This hesitant nature, thankfully he wasn't in the camp, or it would drive him mad. "Today, I went to the first tower with the princess and had a bit of a conflict with Prince Lance. The princess spent a large sum to buy the Icefire Lotus, but then Pearl Blossom, the daughter of the first tower's owner, just gave it to us," Phoenix Seymour explained. Eric Stewart immediately became furious. "Phoenix Seymour, have you lost your mind?" Eric Stewart looked at Phoenix Seymour, who had been with him for many years. How could he act so recklessly? Phoenix Seymour hung his head, clearly aware of his mistake and deliberately waiting to be punished. Fuming, Eric Stewart felt a bit dizzy and quickly left the camp, riding his horse back to Quinn's manor. Claire Crawford was still enjoying her breakfast, sitting on the small swing Eric Stewart had made for her, feeling quite at ease. "Why are you back already? Don't you usually return in the evening? You're early today." "Let me tell you, when I went to the first tower today, I discovered a big secret. It turns out Phoenix Seymour has a secret lover, and she's quite beautiful." Claire Crawford eagerly shared her newfound information, rarely seeing a different expression on his face. Phoenix Seymour almost cried in the afternoon, which shows a deep love, otherwise it wouldn't have such a strong impact. "Don't go to the first house again next time." Eric Stewart rarely looked serious, and it was unclear why, but he suddenly seemed a bit tense. "Hey, I went there to get medicine for you. If you're not grateful, fine, but why this attitude?" Claire Crawford noticed something was off and her expression turned cold. Eric Stewart then explained, "I'm worried about the gossip at the first house. Prince Lance has been very angry lately, so be careful not to get caught in his schemes." Claire Crawford replied indifferently, "That guy lost a huge amount of money, he's probably furious now." Indeed, Prince Lance suffered a significant financial loss. What good is buying the golden silk soft armor? He's not going to the battlefield, at most, it's just for display at home. Eric Stewart chuckled, holding the roast duck he bought after a long wait in line, and said, "Come eat roast duck, your favorite, with some pickled bamboo shoots for extra flavor." Claire Crawford's eyes lit up at the sight of the food and she quickly approached. Meanwhile, Prince Lance was fuming over his losses and returned to his residence in a rage. Emily Crawford entered with a bowl of hangover soup, saying, "Your Highness, have some hangover soup, or you'll have a headache tomorrow." But as soon as she spoke, Prince Lance knocked the bowl out of her hands and pushed her aside. "What use do I have for you?" Prince Lance looked at Emily Crawford, and whenever he saw her, he was reminded of Claire Crawford. His hatred for the Crawfords intensified, leaving no room for kindness towards Emily. Initially, marrying a daughter of the Crawfords was a strategic move to gain Vincent's support. However, Vincent was increasingly favoring Eric Stewart, while Prince Lance distanced himself from the Crawfords. Arrogant by nature, Prince Lance believed Emily's marriage caused his deteriorating relationship with the Crawfords. Thus, his resentment towards Emily Crawford was profound. "Your Highness, I have a plan to assist you. Just wait and see." Once Prince Quinn and Claire Crawford are ruined, my father will naturally recognize your worth and will no longer support Prince Quinn, Emily Crawford said confidently. She had been investigating and finally found some leads. Prince Lance, seeing Emily's determination, decided to trust her for now. All right, I'll wait to see your skills, he conceded, realizing that if she failed, her position would be jeopardized. Without her father's backing and having lost her mother early, Emily blamed Claire Crawford for all her misfortunes. She was determined not to let Claire live peacefully with Eric Stewart. If her life wasn't easy, no one else's would be either. After her conversation with Prince Lance, Emily hurried to meet someone at Shui Xian Tai. She finally encountered the person she had arranged to meet on a flower boat. Are you the one who wanted to meet me? The woman was none other than Pearl Blossom from the first house. She looked at Emily with disdain. Although she held no official status, her father's first house was immensely valuable, and many in the capital dared not provoke her. Pearl Blossom had just returned from Miaojiang, where she had been searching for something unknown. Seeing Emily request a meeting, she was displeased. She had only been away from the capital for 2 years, and now anyone dared to approach her? Though Emily was Prince Lance's consort, she was not favored, and Pearl Blossom had little interest in her, even showing contempt. Chapter 88, The Exquisite Figure of Eric Stewart. It was I who arranged for you to come. Emily Crawford always wore a smile. She had Prince Lance's men investigate Pearl Blossom, so she knew everything about her like the back of her hand. Pearl Blossom glanced at Emily Crawford and then sat down to the side. What's the matter? Speak quickly, I don't have much time to listen to you. Pearl Blossom had returned for an important task, so she had no interest in Emily Crawford. She didn't understand why this person had used Prince Lance's name to summon her, nor what Emily Crawford wanted to say. Miss Blossom, please don't mind, I invited you today to tell you that I can help you. Whatever you need, I can assist you with. Oh? Pearl Blossom looked at Emily Crawford, finding her somewhat intriguing. Really? Pearl Blossom thought these words were not something many dared to say. Now, Emily Crawford dared to say them in front of her, which meant she had done her homework. Emily Crawford stepped forward and said, Of course, my prince and I will do our utmost to support you, Miss Blossom, as long as the first house supports my prince. Pearl Blossom knew that behind Emily Crawford stood Prince Lance. If she claimed she wanted to help, it was surely because she hoped the first house would side with Prince Lance. She couldn't guarantee much else, but it was true that Prince Lance wanted to leverage the power of the first house. You should show some sincerity before speaking. Pearl Blossom wasn't easily fooled. Simply saying you'll help doesn't mean you can, it depends on whether the other party truly has the capability. This is a meeting gift for you, Miss Blossom. Emily Crawford took a small box from her sleeve. Pearl Blossom opened it to find a red pearl inside. Although it seemed valuable, it wasn't enough to win over Pearl Blossom. Yet she smiled, a very cheerful smile. Prince Lance indeed has skills. If I succeed in the future, I will certainly fulfill your wishes. After Pearl Blossom left the flower boat, Emily Crawford knew the matter was essentially settled. That night, Claire Crawford slept restlessly, perhaps because the weather was too hot, making it difficult to sleep peacefully. Eric Stewart picked up a round fan beside him to fan Claire Crawford. After all, it was he who had instructed Claire Crawford to have the stone fan removed, and if she woke up hot, she would surely make a fuss. So, Eric Stewart wisely fanned Claire Crawford first. When she groggily awoke and saw Eric Stewart fanning her, her anger dissipated somewhat. Go to sleep early, don't fan anymore, calm the mind and you'll naturally feel cool. Claire Crawford drowsily went back to sleep, while Eric Stewart watched beside her, feeling even hotter. He could only look but not touch, growing more anxious inside. However, things are much better than before. Previously, even a slight touch would have gotten him kicked to the ground. Compared to before, Claire Crawford is no longer wary of him. Occasionally, when he hugs her waist, Claire Crawford doesn't react as strongly, and sometimes she even sleeps on his arm. Early the next morning, Eric Stewart had already left. Today, Phoenix Seymour wanted Eric Stewart to accompany him to the herbal house in the west of the city to expel some of the cold poison from Eric Stewart's body. Although it couldn't be completely eradicated, it would make Eric Stewart's heart stronger in the future. Therefore, Eric Stewart left early, instructing Willow Green not to disturb Claire Crawford, allowing her to continue sleeping. In the west of the city, Phoenix Seymour had prepared everything, only missing a little. Your Highness, you might feel very weak later, as expelling the cold poison will also drain your vital energy. Phoenix Seymour worried about any unexpected incidents after using the Icefire Lotus. Therefore, he quickly decided to use the Icefire Lotus. Eric Stewart was troubled, not believing the Icefire Lotus would be easy to obtain. After Phoenix Seymour prepared the water, Eric Stewart stepped into it, enduring severe pain that weakened him, but ultimately expelled some black vital energy. Unexpectedly, at this moment, there was a noise outside the door. Although Eric Stewart remained inside, he could hear what was being said outside. "Why are you here? You're not welcome here." Phoenix Seymour frowned, his whole body seemingly resisting. "Phoenix Seymour, why are you so hostile towards me? We used to spend so much time together, how can you be so heartless?" Pearl Blossom smiled slightly, appearing harmless, as she slowly approached. Phoenix Seymour took out his silver needles, as if ready to attack if she moved closer. "What are you doing? Can you really harm me? If I remember correctly, didn't you like me before? How can you change so quickly? Your feelings are truly fickle." Pearl Blossom showed no fear, smiling as she moved closer. Just as Phoenix Seymour was about to falter, Eric Stewart finished dressing and opened the door. The three of them felt quite awkward meeting each other, and Claire Crawford appeared unexpectedly. "Oh, what a devoted little beauty, chasing someone all the way here. Since when did the ice block become so popular?" Claire Crawford said as she entered. Eric Stewart hadn't intended to hide his visit from Claire Crawford, so she knew he was there today. Having nothing else to do at home, she came to find him, curious about the progress of the poison expulsion and whether she could help. Eric Stewart frowned and instructed, "Phoenix Seymour, take your people away." Pearl Blossom just gave a deep smile, which felt different from usual. Phoenix Seymour then directly pulled Pearl Blossom out of their sight. "Wow, why did your words work so effectively? I've never seen him act so proactively. Is it because he met someone special and got anxious?" Claire Crawford thought Phoenix Seymour was naive, never expecting him to have a beautiful woman following him. Eric Stewart frowned and replied, "Why are you so concerned about other men? You should be concerned about me." Claire Crawford pouted and said, "It's just an act, we are merely partners." Eric Stewart frowned even more, and Claire Crawford, not wanting to provoke him further, asked, "How is your poison? Is the Icefire Lotus effective?" Eric Stewart let out a satisfied hum. "I just vomited a lot of blood, feel dizzy, and now I'm weak all over, needing someone to take care of me." Claire Crawford, being straightforward, didn't catch his implication and said, "Phoenix Seymour has gone to flirt with the young lady, so there's no one else to take care of you. I suppose I'll have to stay and look after you." Eric Stewart nodded in satisfaction, not caring if the other returned or not. The important thing was to seize the opportunity to be alone together. "Really? Really? Will you stay and take care of me?" Eric Stewart asked, excitedly, repeating his question several times. Claire Crawford shook her head and said, "Since Phoenix Seymour hasn't returned and you can't be left alone, I'll definitely stay to take care of you." This was great news. Eric Stewart pulled Claire Crawford inside, then naturally blushed as he undressed, revealing his well-toned body in shorts, before soaking in the bath. The shock was overwhelming, and Claire Crawford couldn't react for a while. If a woman undressed in front of a man, it might be clear what she intended, but when a man did it mean the same? No, what am I thinking? I must remain calm and not let him see anything that might make him laugh at me. Eric Stewart's physique was indeed impressive, and Claire Crawford couldn't help but glance over repeatedly, thinking to herself, "This is normal procedure, he needs to bathe, yes, the water is full of herbs, he needs to bathe, he's not trying to seduce me." Claire Crawford blushed deeply, while Eric Stewart was annoyed beside her. Wasn't he handsome? Wasn't his body good enough? Why wasn't his wife reacting at all? ##### Chapter 89, Pearl Blossom causes trouble. Phoenix Seymour pulled Pearl Blossom aside, noticing her calm demeanor, and angrily asked, what exactly do you want to do? Phoenix Seymour would never have been this angry if he hadn't been pushed to the edge. Seeing his impatience, Pearl Blossom found it amusing. Why are you angry? I just came to visit. Our relationship used to be so good, how can you turn your back on me so easily? Phoenix Seymour wasn't skilled with words and felt extremely uncomfortable, wanting to quickly send her away. Pearl Blossom, you need to leave now, he said, attempting to usher her out. Pearl Blossom took out a box from her hand. Phoenix Seymour, you never imagined this pearl would end up with me, did you? She revealed the pearl, and Phoenix Seymour's eyes widened in shock. Well, today has been quite eventful, so I'll be going now. With that, Pearl Blossom staggered away. Phoenix Seymour returned to the room, only to find Eric Stewart soaking in a bath with Claire Crawford attending to him. Phoenix Seymour, how dare you barge in without announcing yourself? Get out now, Eric Stewart said, winking at Claire Crawford for help. But Phoenix Seymour, oblivious to the situation, earnestly replied, Your Highness, you don't need to soak in this medicinal bath anymore. The cold poison has been expelled with the essence blood, continuing this is not good for your health. Eric Stewart, desperate to get up, was pushed back into the water by Claire Crawford. It was hopeless. His hopes were dashed. Claire Crawford, frustrated, stormed off, but Eric Stewart hurriedly grabbed her, saying, Let's go back together. Claire Crawford, feeling mocked, was infuriated. How could this person toy with her? Eric Stewart, after getting dressed, left with Claire Crawford, while Phoenix Seymour stayed behind to handle the aftermath. Unexpectedly, as they reached Quinn's manor, Pearl Blossom's carriage slowly stopped at the gate without entering. Seeing Eric Stewart and Claire Crawford arrive, she leisurely got out. Prince Quinn, Pearl Blossom greeted with a bright smile, walking straight towards Eric Stewart. Claire Crawford also got out slowly and, recognizing Pearl Blossom, smiled and asked, Are you here to see Phoenix Seymour? He's still in the west of the city. Pearl Blossom, seeing Claire Crawford's innocence, shook her head and replied, Prince Quinn, I have business with you. All right then. Claire Crawford felt slighted, but Pearl Blossom, being beautiful and having the backing of the first house, had the right to be proud. She liked Phoenix Seymour, and since he was part of Quinn's manor, it made sense for her to seek out Eric Stewart. All right, you two talk. I'll head inside first. After speaking, Claire Crawford didn't care and went inside. On the other hand, if Phoenix Seymour truly follows Pearl Blossom, it might not end well for him. After all, Pearl Blossom seems to have a rather difficult personality. However, Claire Crawford no longer concerned herself with Pearl Blossom and went inside, planning to instruct the cook to make her a bowl of chilled black jelly. The weather was really too hot. In front of the Quinn mansion, Eric Stewart saw Pearl Blossom. Pearl Blossom kept staring at Eric Stewart, like a hungry ghost with an insatiable appetite. Prince Quinn, are you surprised to see me? Pearl Blossom said, and Eric Stewart felt an urge to flee. Surprised? Eric Stewart sneered and replied, Pearl Blossom, you think I should be shocked? Pearl Blossom didn't mind, whether it was surprise or shock, she wanted to see herself in Eric Stewart's eyes. Does the prince still remember this? Pearl Blossom took out a box containing a red pearl. What do you want to say? Eric Stewart looked at her, wondering if Pearl Blossom was here to cause trouble. Pearl Blossom, knowing Eric Stewart wasn't someone who easily compromised, just smiled and said, I just want to reminisce with you, it's been a long time, and I have a few things to say. Eric Stewart felt he had nothing to discuss with her, so he coldly said, Pearl Blossom, I have nothing to say to you. The princess is still waiting for me, I must go inside now. With that, he went inside directly. Pearl Blossom just smiled, it didn't matter what Eric Stewart wanted to say, she didn't care. Inside, Eric Stewart saw Claire Crawford enjoying some black jelly. Feeling slightly guilty, he asked, Why didn't you prepare a bowl of this delicacy for me? Willow Green immediately went to prepare a bowl of black jelly for Eric Stewart. Claire Crawford lay on a swing under the grapevine, not caring about what Eric Stewart and Pearl Blossom had discussed. Eric Stewart felt a bit frustrated. Although he worried Claire Crawford might misunderstand, when he entered and saw Claire Crawford didn't ask, it was clear she didn't care. Because she didn't have feelings for him, she didn't bother to ask. Would she not care even if he brought another woman home one day? Eric Stuart had doubts but didn't dare to speak the truth or ask, so he ate the black jelly in silence, but his mind was still restless. What are you mumbling about? Claire Crawford basically had no idea what Eric Stuart was talking about. She just wanted to rest for a while when she heard Eric mumbling beside her. What was he so passionately speaking about? Eric only dared to speak in his mind, naturally not daring to voice it in front of Claire, lest he truly anger her and end up sleeping in the study again. It's nothing, just saying that if Pearl Blossom comes when I'm not here, you shouldn't meet her. She has the backing of the first house, and she's quite arrogant and willful, with not a great reputation in the past. Why did Claire feel that Eric had some issues with Pearl Blossom? Were they enemies before? That shouldn't be the case. Pearl Blossom, in pursuit of Phoenix Seymour, hadn't done anything to Quinn's mansion, had she? Claire's mind was filled with various speculations. I actually think Miss Blossom is not bad. Claire still quite liked Pearl Blossom. She was beautiful, and although arrogant, she had the right to be. Eric was quite upset, so he quietly instructed Seven Moon to forbid Pearl Blossom from interacting with Claire. Since he couldn't guard against everything, he could at least prevent Pearl Blossom from approaching Claire. At this moment, a messenger from the Crawford household arrived, prompting Claire and Eric to go outside to see who it was. It was someone sent by the Crawford family. Miss, the Lord requests your presence. The head of the Crawford family had been ill and hadn't gone out lately, especially after Vincent Crawford caused such an embarrassing incident, which made the head of the family stay in. Now, suddenly sending someone to fetch Claire suggested something significant had happened. I will accompany you back, Eric said, prompting Claire to quickly prepare the carriage to head to the Crawford residence. On the way, they encountered Emily Crawford's carriage, slowly approaching Claire's. Is Big Sister heading home? Claire wondered if Emily was returning to the estate, but why was she leaving? Yes, Father doesn't like me, so I'm just going back. You, dear third sister, are truly Father's treasure, Emily said somewhat bitterly, but Claire paid it no mind. After Emily left, someone was hidden in her carriage. Vincent Crawford was sitting inside, looking disheveled and covered in wounds, likely from being punished. If I hadn't saved you this time, you'd be done for. Emily had managed to rescue Vincent, hinting at ulterior motives. Don't worry, you saved me today, I will definitely repay you in the future. Claire wondered if Emily was returning to the estate, but why was she leaving? Yes, Father doesn't like me, so I'm just going back. You, dear third sister, are truly Father's treasure, Emily said somewhat bitterly, but Claire paid it no mind. After Emily left, someone was hidden in her carriage. Vincent Crawford was sitting inside, looking disheveled and covered in wounds, likely from being punished. If I hadn't saved you this time, you'd be done for. Emily had managed to rescue Vincent, hinting at ulterior motives. Don't worry, you saved me today, I will definitely repay you in the future. After speaking, Vincent Crawford seemed to have made up her mind. Regardless of where she went, she could no longer stay at the Marquis's residence. She had learned from her mother that Marquis Crawford intended to marry her off to someone in the countryside. If she were to be married off like that, her life would be over. Therefore, Vincent Crawford sought every means to escape and send a message to Emily Crawford, whom she trusted to help her. After all, they now shared a common enemy, Claire Crawford. As long as they united, they could eliminate Claire Crawford. Which would be a good thing. Chapter 90 Vincent Crawford plans to enter the palace and the residence. Marquis Crawford was so angry that he was bedridden. Perhaps he had never been this furious in his life. When Claire Crawford entered, Marquis Crawford had just taken his medicine and was lying in bed, while the First Lady dared not speak much. Father, what's wrong? Claire Crawford hurried over, pretending to hold Marquis Crawford's hand. Isn't it Vincent Crawford, that rebellious daughter dared to secretly run away? If people find out, won't it be a joke on us? Marquis Crawford trembled with anger. Claire Crawford hadn't expected Vincent Crawford to escape. The First Lady cried beside him, hastily saying, didn't the Marquis plan to marry Vincent to someone in the countryside? Vincent is proud, how could she agree to that? Upon hearing the First Lady's words, Marquis Crawford immediately got angry. Proud? Do I not know what kind of person she is? She's lost her chastity, disgraced herself publicly, and still wants dignity? Claire Crawford thought to herself that Vincent Crawford was really formidable. It seemed Marquis Crawford wanted to completely give up on Vincent Crawford, which was why she ran away. Thus, Vincent Crawford's prospects with Marquis Crawford were truly over, with no hope left. "Father, don't worry, Prince Qin will surely help us find our second sister." After saying this, Marquis Crawford felt truly old. In the past, who dared to talk nonsense behind his back? But now, not only did Prince Lance act behind his back, but he also spread rumors that Marquis Crawford was old, leading the Emperor to consider transferring his power to someone else. This was also why Marquis Crawford was angry and wanted to marry Vincent Crawford off to the countryside. Unfortunately, Vincent Crawford escaped into the night. "Father-in-law, rest assured, I will definitely send someone to investigate the whereabouts of my sister." Eric Stuart had found it strange earlier. How could Vincent Crawford, a frail woman, escape from the mansion? The mansion was vast, and Vincent Crawford couldn't just vanish without a trace. Thinking about Emily Crawford's hasty departure, he felt there must be a connection between these events. Subsequently, Eric Stuart dispatched someone to investigate, but the Prince Lance residence revealed no information. What do you think Vincent Crawford is plotting? Eric Stuart truly couldn't guess. She escaped from the mansion and is now hiding in Prince Lance's residence. Could she be offering herself to Prince Lance? Even if that were the case, Prince Lance might not be interested in Vincent Crawford, and Emily Crawford wouldn't invite trouble into her home. Thus, there must be something suspicious going on. If I remember correctly, the Emperor is about to select a consort. Claire Crawford's idea, though peculiar, wasn't impossible. Otherwise, Emily Crawford wouldn't have taken Vincent Crawford to Prince Lance's residence without reason. If Emily Crawford wasn't inviting trouble, then what benefit could Vincent Crawford's presence at Prince Lance's residence bring to Prince Lance and Emily Crawford? Perhaps there's only one possibility. Could this really be? Eric Stuart was taken aback and then dismissed the thought. The Crawford family was too prominent, and the Emperor wouldn't select his daughter as a consort. If his daughter entered the palace as a consort, his power would have to be divided, and the Emperor wouldn't allow the father of a consort to hold significant power, as it would interfere with court politics. But if Prince Lance acted this way, it would mean completely falling out with the Crawford family. Nothing is impossible. Emily Crawford and Vincent Crawford are both ruthless, they won't care about family ties. We should inform our father of this news. Claire Crawford felt that making the Crawford family completely despise Prince Lance would be beneficial. These days, Vincent Crawford had remained in Prince Lance's residence, continuously practicing her musical skills. She knew she had no other talents, and to catch the Emperor's eye, she needed more than just beauty, she needed something to attract him. The Empress was skilled in music, and the Emperor never forgot her. Vincent Crawford understood this well and aimed to charm the Emperor, hoping to show him that she could also become one of his consorts. She had no other path, only this one. "Sister, you've been neglecting food and sleep for a long time." Emily Crawford seemed to treat her well, as if they were close sisters. However, it was all deceitful. Emily Crawford wants to take advantage of Vincent Crawford to ensure all the power in her father's hands is transferred to Prince Lance. She wants Prince Lance to see her as valuable, ensuring she remains his consort and that he needs her. Only by showing her worth can she win Prince Lance's heart. Vincent Crawford, holding a bowl of lotus seed and white fungus soup, smiled and said, "Dear sister, even though you've helped me, I must tell you, men are unreliable. If you depend entirely on them, you'll end up with nothing." Just like how she loved Jade Stone, who turned around and loved someone else. Jade Stone marrying Amelia Stuart was an insult to her. Therefore, Vincent Crawford vowed to rise above, making Jade Stone kneel before her. Emily Crawford paid no heed to Vincent's words. She felt that Jade Stone wasn't a good person, but her situation with Prince Lance was different. As long as Prince Lance saw her good side, he would understand her true feelings. Vincent Crawford remained silent, attended by her servant, Shi Lian. Late at night, Shi Lian quietly left Prince Lance's residence and went to the Qin estate. Seven Moon led Shi Lian to meet Eric Stuart, where Claire Crawford was also present. Eric Stuart was not wary of her. Shi Lian greets the prince. Vincent Crawford is indeed at Prince Lance's residence, practicing music daily. Prince Lance and his consort protect her closely, and it seems she will soon enter the palace. Claire Crawford smiled, confirming her suspicions. This person indeed wants to enter the palace, and this news must quickly reach Lord Crawford. Only by knowing this can Lord Crawford lose hope in Prince Lance. Claire Crawford returned to the estate, where Lord Crawford appeared to be in better spirits. "Father, I have something to say, but I'm unsure if I should." Claire Crawford wasn't truly concerned about her father's health but felt he was unlucky. All three of his daughters were scheming against him. Ultimately, it was Lord Crawford's own issues, but he never realized it. "Do you have news of Vincent Crawford?" Lord Crawford was most worried about Vincent, hoping she wouldn't disgrace him further. Claire smiled and said, "Father, my second sister is at Prince Lance's residence, likely honing her skills to enter the palace as a consort." Upon hearing this, Lord Crawford's expression changed. "Father, if my second sister enters the palace, you will be suspected by the Emperor. Neither Prince Lance nor the prince can speak on your behalf, you must handle this personally." Duke Crawford nodded, realizing that he must personally handle this matter. King Eric Stuart was not respected by Prince Lance, and thus had no standing in his presence. "Therefore," he said, "rest assured, I will personally meet with Prince Lance regarding this issue. You all have worked hard." Claire Crawford shook her head and said, "Father, the king mentioned that your affairs are also ours. We are just worried that our second sister is truly confused, and so is Prince Lance. How could he hide such matters from you?" Duke Crawford was also angry. Prince Lance surely understood the implications of bringing Vincent Crawford into the palace, yet he proceeded anyway, clearly showing disregard for him. Prince Lance's actions were utterly disrespectful. "You are all dutiful, and I understand," Duke Crawford acknowledged, deciding to handle the situation directly by confronting Prince Lance. Claire Crawford was eager to see how things would unfold. Eric Stuart was gaining more importance in Duke Crawford's eyes and also held significance in the Emperor's view. Therefore, Prince Lance was no longer the only outstanding figure. If Prince Lance could be removed from his position, they would achieve their goal. Whether Vincent Crawford entered the palace was not crucial, the key was for Duke Crawford and Prince Lance to fall out. As long as Prince Lance refused to give up on Vincent Crawford and brought him into the palace, the relationship between Duke Crawford and Prince Lance would be completely severed. As Claire Crawford left the residence, Eric Stuart was still waiting in the carriage. Seeing Claire approach, he kindly massaged her shoulders, his ingratiating manner making Claire laugh. Chapter 91, People are not what they used to be. At Prince Lance's residence, Vincent hurriedly arrived, demanding that Prince Lance hand over Vincent Crawford. Late at night, when Vincent met with Prince Lance, Emily Crawford was also present. Father, Emily Crawford, now fully aligned with Prince Lance, no longer held any regard for her father. Frankly, Emily felt that Vincent never truly cared for her. If her father didn't hold her in his heart, why should she hold him in hers? "You still recognize me as your father? Hand over Vincent Crawford," Vincent demanded, seething with anger. His daughter was proving to be quite troublesome. "Father, how would I know where my sister is?" Emily feigned ignorance, refusing to admit that Vincent Crawford was with her. "So, you're planning to sever ties with your father now?" Vincent was shocked by his daughter's words and was about to strike her. Prince Lance intervened before Vincent could act. "Vincent, are you planning to cause a scene in Prince Lance's residence?" Prince Lance was displeased with Vincent's recent actions and was waiting for him to speak more gently. Unfortunately, Prince Lance's expectations were misplaced. Vincent, with his stubborn nature, had no intention of speaking softly to him. He seemed ready to completely sever ties with Prince Lance. "Prince Lance, you seem quite authoritative now." "I am somewhat intimidated," Vincent remarked, recognizing that Prince Lance had no intention of handing over his daughter. The residence of Prince Lance was not a place one could easily intrude upon. Therefore, Vincent couldn't search the premises. Yet, leaving like this left him feeling uneasy. Vincent Crawford was still his daughter, and now she was being used against him, which felt wrong. "Vincent, I truly don't know where your daughter is," nor does my wife. If you have time, perhaps you should search elsewhere, Prince Lance suggested. Furious, Vincent glared at the couple. I have truly raised a remarkable daughter. Now, she doesn't even see me as her father. Fine, it seems you intend to cut ties with your family, Vincent warned, his words carrying a hint of caution. Emily Crawford remained silent, knowing she had to support Prince Lance, otherwise, she risked being abandoned. Enraged, Vincent stormed off, heading straight to the residence of Duke Qin. Claire Crawford and Eric Stuart had been resting, but now they had to get up to meet someone. Prince Lance is too much. If I had evidence, I would definitely make a fuss to His Majesty. Vincent was angry with Prince Lance and came here seeking some balance. Claire Crawford, yawning, said, Father, since we don't have any evidence, I suggest we let the news of second sister's disappearance spread, so the prince can help, and it will reach the whole capital and the palace. This way, even if second sister enters the palace later, His Majesty will know it wasn't his idea. Vincent thought this was feasible. After all, he didn't dare disappoint the emperor, who could easily take away his armored army's power with just a word. All right, if that's the case, then I'll trouble you. Rest assured, Qin Prince, I will speak well of you to His Majesty, Vincent said to Eric Stuart without much subtlety. Fortunately, Eric Stuart didn't mind. Being out of favor with the emperor, he was grateful for Vincent's support. Father-in-law, you're too serious. I'm happy to help you. Eric Stuart had been quietly doing a lot, and the servants Vincent gave him had been trained to become his people. As long as Vincent gave, he had the skill to turn them into his own. Vincent, troubled by Vincent Crawford's issues and wary of Prince Lance,